The sun rose gently over the kingdom of Elma, casting a golden light on the palace walls. Birds chirped in the gardens, servants rushed about preparing breakfast, and guards stood tall at the gates. But high in his grand room, King Harun was. Not smiling, he stood in front of a mirror, dressed in rich red robes made from the softest silk. A golden crown rested on his head, and his boots were polished until they shone. Yet, King Harun frowned. He did not like what he saw. Why must I always deal with foolish people? He said to himself. Why is no one as wise and strong as I am? King Harun was a young ruler, only 25 years old, but he believed he was the smartest man in the land. He had studied many books, won battles, and built large buildings in the city. People called him the brilliant lion. He liked the name, but it made him proud, too proud. His ministers feared him. His soldiers obeyed without question. The servants bowed deeply and avoided his eyes. No one dared to speak against him, for they knew he had a sharp tongue and a quick temper. That morning, the king held a meeting in the throne room. It was large, with marble floors, high windows, and red curtains that danced in the wind. Ministers and nobles stood around, waiting. A poor farmer, dressed in dusty clothes, knelt before the king. Speak, Harun said with a bored voice. The farmer bowed even lower. Your Majesty, the rains have not come to my village. The crops are dying. We beg for food and water. King Harun raised an eyebrow. You beg? Do you think I run a charity? Should I give my riches to every man who cannot grow a tomato? The farmer looked down. No, sire, I only ask for your help. The people are starving. You should have worked harder. Dug deeper wells, plan better, go now. I have no time for lazy men. The farmer left in silence. The minister said nothing, but some shifted uncomfortably. They knew the king was unfair, but they also feared his anger. Later that day, as the king walked through the garden, an old woman tried to approach him. Her back was bent, her clothes torn. Your Majesty, my son was wrongly taken by the guards. He did no crime, she cried. Then go and speak to the guards, Harun said, waving his hand. I do not have time for whining mothers. But, sire, I have no one else to turn to silence. I do not want to hear your complaints. Guards, take her away. The soldiers pulled the woman away gently. The king did not look back. That night, Harun sat alone in the royal dining hall. He ate from golden plates filled with roasted lamb, sweet rice, and ripe fruits. Musicians played soft music in the background. Still, the king was not happy. Why are people so weak and noisy? He said, I do everything myself. I lead, I decide, I fix. And they only come to beg. As he spoke, an old man entered the room. He wore a simple brown robe and walked with a wooden stick. His eyes were sharp, though his body was weak. The king frowned. Who are you? Who let you in? The old man bowed. My name is Harun. I come from the hills. I bring a message. The guard stepped forward, but the king raised his hand. Speak, but speak quickly. Harun looked directly at the king. You believe you are wise. You believe you are strong. But a man who looks down on others is like a tree that forgets its roots. One strong wind, and it will fall. The king laughed. Another poet with riddles. I've had enough. Guards, but Harun raised his hand calmly. You have ruled with pride, not with care. You think yourself above others. But the world is wide, and it has many lessons to teach. The king leaned forward. Are you threatening me, old man? I threaten nothing. I only give a warning. A test will come soon, a test of your heart. If you fail, you may lose what you love most. If you pass, you may gain something far greater. Before the king could answer, Harun turned and walked out. The guards followed him, but when they reached the hallway, he was gone, vanished like mist in the morning air. King Harun sat still for a long time. The next day, everything seemed normal. But change was coming. That morning, a messenger arrived on horseback. His face was pale, and sweat poured down his brow. Your Majesty, a group of strangers has entered the kingdom. They come not as traders or guests. They wear simple clothes and walk without fear. They say they seek truth. Truth. The king said, confused, what nonsense is this? They do not ask for food or gold, they ask questions, deep questions. Some people have gathered to hear them speak. They speak of humility and respect. They say no man is greater than another, no matter his crown or clothes. The king laughed. Let them speak to fools. I will not waste my time with beggars. But, inside, something pulled at him. The words of Raphan echoed in his mind. A test is coming. Over the next few days, the strangers, 3 men and 1 woman, traveled from village to village. They were kind and wise. They helped people fix their roofs, shared stories, and listened with care. They never said their names. But everywhere they went, people listened. They speak like kings. One farmer said. No, his wife replied. They speak like friends. Soon, their names reached the capital. People from the city began to leave the market early just to go hear them talk. Children followed them, singing songs. Even nobles became curious. The king grew angry. Why do my people care for these strangers? He shouted at his ministers. What magic do they use? They do not use magic. One brave minister said. They use respect. King Harun waved his hand. I will see them myself. So, one morning, dressed in simple clothes and without his crown, the king left the palace. He rode alone and found the strangers sitting under a large tree by the river, surrounded by villagers. One of them was telling a story. There was once a mountain who laughed at the hill. You were small and useless, he said. But one day, the rain poured and the mountain cracked. The hill stood strong. Why? Because it bent with the wind. The mountain did not. The crowd smiled. King Harun stepped forward. You speak in riddles. What do they mean? The man looked up. They mean that pride breaks, but humility bends and survives. Are you trying to teach people to ignore kings? No, the woman replied. We teach people to see the value in all the rich and the poor, the strong and the weak. Even a child can teach a king, if the king is wise enough to listen. The king was silent. For the first time, he had no reply. He sat down on the grass. Among the people, tell me more, he said, duh. And they did. That day was the beginning of something new in King Harun's heart, a soft feeling he had never allowed. Before, he listened for hours. He asked questions. He did not give orders. He only listened. When he returned to the palace, his ministers were shocked. Prepare a meal, the king said, and invite the poorest people in the city. I wish to eat with them. But sire, the palace is no place for all people, the king said. This is their home, too. The ministers exchanged glances. Something had changed, something big, but this was only the start, the real test. The one Raphan spoke of was still to come, and it would shake King Harun to his core. The palace of Elma had never seen anything like it. Poor farmers, old women, tired builders, and hungry children all stood at the palace gates. They had not come to beg. They had been invited by the king himself. Guards opened the doors, not with cold eyes, but with soft smiles. Inside, the large dining hall had no gold decorations that day. The long table was set with simple wooden bowls and metal spoons. Rich food was served, but everyone ate together, the rich and the poor, side by side. King Harun sat among the people. He did not wear his crown. He laughed with a toothless boy, who had never tasted meat before. He listened to a blind woman's story of raising her grandchildren alone. He helped pour water into cups when a servant grew tired. The people were amazed. So were the nobles. The king, once feared for his pride, had become kind and thoughtful. But not everyone was happy. Some wealthy lords whispered among themselves, "This king is making fools of us." One said, "He lowers himself before peasants," said another. "What kind of ruler is this? We must remind him of his place." A third whispered. And so, the real test came quietly and suddenly. One morning, as the king walked in the village, he saw smoke rising in the distance. A boy ran up to him, panting, "Your Majesty, the hill village is on fire." Without waiting for guards or horses, King Harun ran. He climbed steep roads and reached the village, where flames danced through the wooden homes. People screamed, children cried. A mother searched for her baby. The king rushed into the smoke. He covered his face and carried buckets of water. He helped pull out two children trapped inside a burning house. His royal robe caught a spark, but he beat it out with his hands. Finally, the fire was gone. the village was half destroyed. But no lives were lost. That evening, tired and covered in ash, the king returned to the palace. Bring the builders. We will rebuild the village, he said. But a minister stepped forward. His name was Lord Bran, one of the wealthiest and proudest men in Elma. Your Majesty, with respect, Lord Bran said, this is not your duty. The village is poor. Why should we spend the royal gold to help them? They pay no taxes. They are of no use to the kingdom. The room fell silent. King Harun looked at him. What do you mean, of no use? They cannot fight wars. They do not trade goods. They are simple people. Harun walked to the window and looked out over the city. When I fell as a child, it was a poor woman who picked me up. When I was sick, it was a farmer who gave me herbs that healed me. When the fire came, those same people saved each other not with gold, but with love. He turned back to Lord Bran. If we only help those who are rich or powerful, then we are not a kingdom. We are a tower, tall and cold. But if we help all, we become a home. Lord Bran frowned. You are making the nobles angry, then let them be angry. I will not lead a kingdom built on pride. That night, someone placed a letter under the king's door. It read, you have passed the first test. The second now begins. He remembered Ruffan's words. A test of your heart. The next day, a traveller arrived in Elma. He wore rough clothes and carried nothing but a staff. He went straight to the palace gates and asked to see the king. The guards hesitated, but the king had given orders. Let all people in. The traveller entered the throne room. His face was covered by a scarf. I have a gift for you, he said. I need no gifts, Harun replied, smiling. But I welcome your words. The traveller removed his scarf. It was Ruffan, the same man who had appeared months ago and vanished. Like smoke. I told you a test would come, Ruffan said. Yes, the fire, the people, the choice, Harun said. I chose them. I chose to listen, to learn, to help. You did, Ruffan nodded. But there is one more test. He reached into his robe and pulled out a small stone, shining like silver. This stone will show you your future. If you look, you will see how your life ends. The ministers gasped. The guard stepped forward. Harun held out his hand. The stone began to glow. Slowly, a picture formed. In it, he saw himself old and grey, sitting under a tree with children around him. He wore no crown. He looked happy. Why show me this? The king asked. To remind you, Ruffan said, that your greatest legacy is not your gold, your battles, or your power. It is the love you leave behind in others. Tears filled Harun's eyes. Ruffan smiled and said, you have passed the final test. You no longer rule with pride, you rule with respect. And so, you are truly a king. With that, Ruffan walked away and disappeared, never to be seen again. Years passed. Elma became known as the Kingdom of Kindness. Travellers came from far lands to learn how to rule with humility and justice. King Harun built schools, hospitals, and homes for the poor. He created a council with farmers, teachers, and children so all voices were heard. He still wore his crown, but he no longer needed it to feel important. People loved him not for his title, but for his heart. When he grew old, he passed the crown to his daughter, a gentle and wise woman who had played with village children all her life. On his last day, King Harun sat under a tree. Children gathered around him, asking for stories. Tell us the one about the fire, said a boy. No. Tell us about the strangers with wisdom, said a girl. Harun laughed. How about the one where a proud king learned the meaning of respect? They nodded. And so, he told them the story of a king who once believed he was greater than all, until he learned that true greatness lives in serving others. As the sun set, his eyes closed peacefully. The kingdom did not cry in sadness. They smiled with love, because they knew he had taught them the greatest lesson of all, that no person is too small to matter, and no heart is too humble to lead.